Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, one of the Career Readiness Consultants at the Kent ISD, and I'm so glad you're here today. I am welcoming Sherry Rodriguez from Calvin University. She does therapy there and also has a history of being a medical social worker. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
We're going to have a fun conversation for the next 30 minutes. It's going to go really fast, and the students have been loving learning about careers. I know that you have a career path that's going to be interesting to them to learn about the social work field. So just to get us started, Sherry, let's take you back to when you were in high school, maybe 15 or 16 years old. You know, did you think you wanted to grow up to be a social worker? Tell us about those initial thoughts and how you got to where you are today.
Sounds good. I had no clue whatsoever what I wanted to be in high school. I was kind of focused on high school, hanging out with my friends. I knew I better do well academically because I did want to go to college. And I was hoping that something would pop into my mind along the way or as I studied and so on. So I really didn't have any idea. My family was all teachers and they really expected me to be a teacher. I had no interest in teaching, but I knew I liked working with people. And so I went to college undecided. For the first 2 years, I really didn't have a clue. I had a summer job doing some kind of accounting kind of thing at a business. And I thought, well, that was cool because I enjoyed the people I worked with. So I took a couple accounting classes and failed miserably because I actually didn't really like the accounting. It was working with the people that I enjoyed. And so I did some of the aptitude tests about, you know, what are things that I might be good at. And back in the day, they weren't as good as they are now. I was told that I should either be a funeral home director or a lumberjack, which didn't really sound that great to me. But the more I looked into different careers, I noticed that sociology and social work were things that really were interesting to me. So
when you kind of discovered this kind of sociology, social worky thing, was it easy to switch your major? Had you done any job shadows at that point? How did you even know what that was really about?
So I didn't have to switch my major because I was undeclared at that point in time. So I had taken a sociology class and it was about different cultures, different backgrounds, learning about people and how they interact with each other in society. And that was fascinating to me. And so my major at that point was sociology with a social work minor. And the more I learned about social work, the more I realized that's really the direction I wanted to head. So I kept the sociology major. And then once I graduated, I went on and got my master's degree in social work.
And what was that like? Did you have to do an internship? Yeah, tell us about that process. Because everyone needs a master's, right, to be a actual social worker. Are there a bachelor's level as well? Yeah, tell us about that.
Bachelor's level. So if you're doing a bachelor's degree in social work, you can work as a social worker. You would do an internship while you're in college as well, and in your last couple of years. I didn't do that since I was doing my sociology degree, but when I got my master's, I did an internship. So if you choose to go on for your master's, you do another additional internship. But you can graduate without a master's degree and still get good social work jobs. A lot of them would include things like case management, things like that, but not necessarily doing the therapy. So
when you graduated with your master's degree, how did you make that transition to that first job? How did you know which direction you wanted to go? What kind of agency you even wanted to work with?
Well, I actually, when I was studying at Calvin, I was working, like just picking up jobs here and there, cleaning, or I worked in a hair salon, doing all sorts of just odd jobs just to make money. And once I realized what it was that I wanted to do, I wanted to kind of figure out what that was like. And so during college, I got a job working at a group home for adults with chronic mental illnesses. And so it was, you know, it's important to learn the book knowledge, but it was also really important to work with people. And so it's not just, you know, that schizophrenic. It's, you know what, John, who really loves art and loves flying kites, and he struggles with schizophrenia, right? And so you learn more about the illness, but you learn more about people and how to treat people. And so I got a job doing that. And then I started as a staff member and then kind of worked my way into supervision. And then I was grateful that I was able to grow with the company. And actually, I got to the point where I was actually the the clinical director and operational director for the whole organization. So that was really great to be able to do that, within that company. And getting my master's degree allowed me a ton of opportunity. So I started working with the chronically mentally ill, and then I got a job doing case management, and then I got a job doing working at the hospital doing medical social work. I worked in organizations that deal with individuals struggling with trauma and substance abuse. So, and I have my own therapy practice as well. I worked at Forest View, I worked at Pine Rest, both with the individuals that are there, and then also with, doing the administration. So the beauty of social work is that you can really do a lot of things. So, we're kind of talking about medical social work today, and that was one of the greatest experiences because I was able to work with people in a lot of different situations. So it wasn't only working with children dealing with adoptions, or only working with the elderly, who needed a nursing home placement. It was working with anyone that came in, whether it was child abuse, drugs, trauma, gang violence, you name it. We saw it, right? And had to figure out, what do you do in this situation? So I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. So I kind of like the crisis, and not everybody does. And the beauty of social work is that, if that doesn't really meet your needs, or what kind of fills you up, then there's a lot that you can do. Like I said, now I'm doing therapy in a college setting. I never thought I'd do that. But I've been able to do a lot of different things. It's a profession where once you get the foundation, you can do a lot of different things and use that knowledge throughout the course of your career.
I love that you're helping young people understand that it's just a nice big broad umbrella, the social work term, and that there's so many different categories. And I'd love to dig into a few more of your own experiences. But some students have never heard of social work. So how would you best describe what a social worker does on a day-to-day? And I know that's different, in the environment and everything, but what does a social worker do?
Essentially, it's, you're working with either a client or the family, or a unit, just to kind of figure out, okay, what is going on with this person? So a lot of times, like psychology is looking at the brain functioning, and social work is looking more at the person in their environment. So it's not just what's going on with you medically, or with your brain, or with your family. It's looking, all of those components are important. So, mental, spiritual, physical. Are you safe in your home? Do you have transportation? What was your history like? How did you get to where you're at? What is it that you're looking for, and how can I help you get there? So it's not about me giving you the answer. This is what you must do with your life to be successful. It's me getting to know you well enough to know how to help you not just survive, but thrive in life, right? And so that might be because I know resources to hook you up with, or I might help you work on skills to work with your family so that you guys can get along better. Or, maybe there are situations where people aren't safe. Okay, let's figure out, what does that look like to get you into a situation that is safe.
So when you were saying about being an adrenaline junkie, I mean, you're obviously a problem solver as well. I mean, it sounds like everything you do is being a problem solver.
Yeah, I guess, and you don't have to be an adrenaline junkie to be in social work at all. It's about noticing what's going on, and then figuring out, where do we go from here, right? And so people that really like that crisis work can do things like medical social work. People that don't like crisis work can do medical social work. So I worked in the emergency department of a couple hospitals, and that was a go, go, go. I had 5 pagers. I'm running to this, that, and the other thing. And it was exciting, but very emotionally taxing. I also worked doing inpatient social work. So, whether that was with the kids in the kids units, or with the elderly, trying to find them nursing home placements, or family issues. So there's an awful lot of different things to be done as a social worker in hospitals.
I know many of our students on this Zoom call, Sherry, love the idea of working with kids. So can you kind of give us some examples of what that might be in the kids unit when you're a social worker? What are you doing with those kids?
Yeah, so in the hospital in particular, or in medical social work?
Yeah, in the medical field.
That might be anything from ensuring that they maybe they're having a long hospital stay because they have a significant illness. And so I'm going to make sure that their families are supported. I'm going to make sure that the kids are getting the resources they need. Or do they need education? Once they're going to transfer, do they have the appropriate place to go? Things like that. It might be working with them and their families to ensure that they are safe. There have been situations where, based on what's going on, it's not a safe situation for the child to return to. And then it's my job to help assess that with different resources to make sure that they transfer to another, to a safe home. Maybe, maybe the parent has some struggles that make them unable to care for their child well. Then does that mean that the child is unable to stay in the home? Not necessarily. Can we provide resources for the parents? Sometimes it's just going in with, they have a child life specialist also, and they have like this closet full of toys. Well, it might mean I notice that somebody's having a hard day and I'm walking past and kind of know what's going on with their family. So I stop and I grab a toy and I go in there and I just sit and I'm just present with them. So it can mean a lot of different things, not just crisis, but it could be, a longer term situation. But the reality too is that there are some kids that are there and it's not going to be a happy ending, right? There are some kids that maybe they're in the cancer unit. And so what does that look like? My job also entails end of life care and making sure that they have the right resources. And then what happens after that? So yeah, there are some really great things about it. And there are some hard things, but that also can be really great. So for me to be a calming, caring presence when people are in really difficult situations, I think can be a gift to be able to just be present with them in those moments and to help them feel cared for.
I absolutely love what you just shared, Sherry, because oftentimes there's kind of a stigma around social work when people, like my daughter was thinking about going into that. And so many people would be like, oh, you're going to be broke and burned out, and they just focused on that instead of you're going to get to help change people's lives. You're going to be that calming influence when they're having the worst day of their lives. Like no one kind of looked at the positives of what a social worker has to bring to the table. And so I just love that you framed it that way. And I know there's so many young people on this Zoom call that have expressed that in some of the reflections, that they're just caring, loving young people who want to serve. So what else do you love about your job that's kept you in this field? Although you've had a variety of jobs, like, is that the crux then, that you get to help people?
Yes. I think if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be here anymore. So there are those moments when, I'm sitting with somebody and they like come to the realization that they're ready to make a change, or something that we've talked about for a long time. Like finally they're understanding it and getting it in a different level. And so for me to be able to bring my skills and my experience and just really get to know them, had I not had that, I wouldn't be able to be part of that experience. And so it's those moments that keep me coming back. There are a lot of days where it can be hard, right? And so then you also have to learn, what does it look like to be in a profession that can be hard, but also be healthy doing it? So, it takes a lot of self-care. It takes, sometimes I'm in sessions with clients saying, well, you should eat better and you should, sleep well and things like that. And I think, oh, I need to do that too, right? And so it's of the utmost importance, if you're doing this job, to learn to care for yourself well. And that's not like a luxury. Like once you get your job done, then you should, or once you do this, then you can take care of yourself. It's like, there will always, always, always be more to do. But if you don't take care of yourself well, you're not going to be able to care well for others. So it's not selfish to do that.
Such wisdom, for sure. When you think about some of the jobs you've had, let's just look at the hospital setting for a minute and we'll go on to the others. How did you and your colleagues there take care of yourselves? And was that a support team? Because I would imagine there's just some extra difficult things in that particular setting. What were some of those coping strategies?
Sometimes it's recognizing what's going on with ourselves or with our coworkers and just saying, hey, why don't you take a minute? Or like, I have some snacks in the office, go take a minute. Or just recognizing when your own stuff is kind of getting in the way. So, I had to respond to a traumatic situation with a child, and I had kids the same age. And so that kind of brought up my own stuff. And so I knew that I needed to just take a minute and just to kind of regroup and just say, okay, this is not your child. Let me get grounded in this situation, and so that I can care well for the family. So, it's taking time. It's also debriefing with each other. So like building a relationship with your peers so that you can kind of say, this was a really tough shift, or, I'm not sure what to do with this, without feeling like you need to know everything. Otherwise you're going to be judged. You know what? That's not how we operate, because no situation is going to be the same. I was looking at some of the questions that Krista posted, or Mrs. Harmon posted for today. And one was, tell me about a typical day. And I literally laughed, because there's no typical day. I don't care whether I'm working in the hospital. I don't care if I'm working in the college or therapy or, substance abuse, Pine Rest. There's no typical day. And so that's also what kind of keeps me coming back, right? It's just like you never know what you're going to get. You just got to problem solve and go with it. And that's kind of my personality. And you learn how to do that over time as well. So
I think that's so important for young people to hear, that even as you develop your skills, because I think there's a lot of anxiety, like, how will I know what I'm supposed to do? How will I know, if I'm doing it right? Or I think young people expect they have to know it all by the time they graduate from college. And I love that the way you're sharing that. It's like, it's consistent skill building throughout your career. You're having different experiences. You'll lean on your colleagues. You'll problem solve together. It's part of the journey, is
right.
figuring it out, right?
And I think it's important to realize you're always going to be able to learn and develop and grow more. So it sounds like a lot of the students are talking about, I really want to help people. Well, I really care about people. That's not necessarily a skill that can be learned. So you already kind of got the hard part down, right? Like if you are able to provide that, that's what people notice. That's what people will understand. And they walk away going, that person cared about me. They don't go, wow, they didn't use the correct theory, or they didn't say the appropriate words, or, when they did my discharge, they didn't do this exactly right. That's not what they're going to remember. They're going to remember so-and-so really cared about me. And that is exactly what I needed in that moment. It was a tough moment and they were there for me. And you know what? There have been times where I've made mistakes. I've been doing this 30 years. And there have been times where I've had to, come back the next day or the next session and say to somebody, you know what? I was kind of thinking about what happened yesterday and I blew it. I totally blew it. I have my master's degree. I've been doing that, I blew it. And you know what? That's where so much learning happens, because I'm saying, I'm human, you're human. We don't always get it right, but I respect you enough to fix it with you. So you don't always have to get it right, as long as you see those as opportunities to do things differently the next time. Because if you just kind of leave it there, then that's disrespectful to them, and that's not right. So, but just being humble enough to say, you know what, I kind of didn't do that one so great yesterday. So let's talk it through. This is, I just want to say I'm sorry about that. So.
I think some of the young people who have been on these Zoom calls for the series, we've heard that a few times, Sherry, and it's so great for young people to hear adults saying, you're going to make mistakes, that whole fail forward, you learn from it, you do better, but it's just part of it. And to not worry about being perfect all the time or having it all figured out, because that will paralyze us as we pursue these things, right?
Absolutely.
I just think it's so great what you had to share. A couple quick questions from the students. Going back to education just for a minute, what would you say would be some of the advantages of having a master's then versus stopping at a bachelor's degree?
Okay, the master's degree opens up a ton of doors. So, you can get entry-level social work jobs with a bachelor's degree, but then that's kind of where you're stuck. You kind of plateau there at a lot of jobs. But really the doors for me were wide open once I got my master's degree. And I've considered getting my PhD, and you don't need a PhD to do more than I'm doing right now. So I can teach at the college. I can do anything. I can, right now, even doing therapy, I'm able to bill for therapy in a way that other professions aren't, because it's recognized as a degree that holds a lot of status. And so it really I can do a lot more with a master's degree than I could with a bachelor's degree.
And that's important for young people to know. And just to remind the young people, remember, you don't have to decide that all at once. You can start at the bachelor's level, be working, get yourself out there, check it all out. and then decide to get that next level once you kind of focus in a little bit. Would you agree, Sherry?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people that had their bachelor's degree and worked for a while and got some experience and then realized they want a little bit more than that. And so then they go on, and maybe by that time they have a career and a family, and so they go part-time. Some people go right on after their bachelor's degree and do an accelerated program, so they get it done quickly in 2 years. Some people take 4 years to do it, and do it part-time. So there's a lot of flexibility in programs. And in my role right now at Calvin, I'm the person that hires and trains the interns as well. And so there's a teaching component. I teach a class there. It just really, with a master's degree, there's a lot more that you can do. So.
And young people may not be aware, but when you have a full-time position at a college or university, you get a tuition perk. So just give them a perk of working at a university setting, Sherry, that many would not know about.
Yeah, so I have kids that are college aged. I have 2 kids that are going to Calvin right now, and they get a big chunk of their tuition paid for because I work there. I can use the gym. I can, go to a lot of the concerts and things like that when they are there, and the sports events, at a reduced or free cost. There's tons of trainings that I can attend free. So there's an awful lot, that I'm able to have access to because of that position.
Yeah, I just want young people to hear. So we know that you worked in a hospital setting. You worked in that initial job, which was a group home setting. You worked in a hospital settings. Again, just such a great variety of opportunities when you have your master's specifically. What's been some of your favorite, if you can pull out one of your favorite stories or clients, something that really, like, to this day still warms your heart? And then maybe one of the sad ones too.
Yeah, when I was in college, I was working at a group home, and it was 6 adult males that had pretty significant mental health issues, and they lived in a home, and so we helped them with cooking and things like that, and just daily life skills. And there were 2 gentlemen that lived there that were deaf, and nobody could communicate with them. Nobody knew sign language. They would get so angry that they would just act out, which makes sense when nobody knows what you're saying, you can't get your needs across. I mean, they would become pretty physical and things like that. And so a friend and I that worked there went and took sign language classes. And so we came back and we started signing, and then they started teaching us to sign, which was really cool because these are people that a lot of times people look at them as less than, but they had something to offer us. And so we learned and were able to communicate with them. The level of their acting out decreased like crazy. I ran into one of the guys not too long ago, and I mean, they in sign language, they kind of give you special names, right? And so they're like, no way, it's Sherry, they're like, you're old, but it's so nice to see you. And it was just really great. Like, it just changed their life just by me taking the time just to learn to be able to communicate with them. So that was, I love learning more, but then when you can apply it in a way that helps you to connect with others, that's been pretty great.
That's a beautiful, beautiful example of getting to know your clients and then finding that thing that they need to meet a need. I just love that, Sherry. What's been one of your more challenging situations? Because we want kids to have a realistic idea, and you've definitely shared that. It's not always easy, but is there something that stands out that you maybe want to share with them?
Well, I mean, the job is hard. I mean, it's not always about just trying to figure out how to deal with the stress of exams, which that's significant too, right? Or a breakup with somebody. But sometimes, and it's not just with college students, it's in my roles in the hospitals and in the psychiatric hospitals, and it's dealing with people that, struggle with thoughts of ending their life. That's a realistic issue in somebody struggling with depression. And so, to leave a session and just hope that what they told you was going to be true and that they'll come back to the next session. Sometimes that can really, really weigh on you. Or if somebody, people are still people and they get to make their choices. And so when people make choices that are pretty harmful to themselves, and you've developed a relationship with them, a therapeutic relationship, it's just hard to see bad things happen to people because it's ultimately not within my control. So So that's difficult.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And so as young people, look at their own personalities, start to discern, their likes and dislikes, and even the amount of client contact. That's what we're trying to help them understand with these variety of health careers, is that can meet your own personality needs. What might you suggest, we just have a few minutes left, as high school students, what they might be able to do now to kind of prepare themselves, or maybe explore, was it some certain volunteer work? What could they be doing now to kind of see if this might be a good fit for them?
Yeah, I mean, even things like tutoring, or volunteering. Maybe your church has something to help children, or I mean, depending on what your interest is. So, like, there are nursing homes that, there are people in the nursing homes that when we were able to meet with people, they don't have anybody that comes to visit. When I was younger, this should have been my sign, but like on Sunday afternoons, for some reason, I thought that it was my job to visit the elderly in my community. So I literally would walk up to their door, knock on their door, and go, "Hey, would you like to visit?" And now looking back, like, what kid does that? But like, that should have been my sign. But that was enjoyable to me. So, like, just to find opportunities. So, maybe you're just noticing, like, even at school, like somebody that just needs a little extra, like that says something about who you are and what it is that you're kind of designed for, right? So just noticing opportunities. So it could be somebody down the road just needs something, but it could be something more formal. I know that the like Gilda's Club has volunteering. The hospitals often do. Mary Free Bed does. There are a lot of really great places in town, and I think you can often Google like volunteer opportunities for high schoolers, and sometimes things will come up. But even think about like your community or people that and just kind of say, "Hey, I'm just kind of interested in this. Is there something that you can think of that I can do that might give me some experience or opportunities?"
That's such an encouragement for young people to really think about that, you guys, what you could be doing in high school or your summers or breaks to start connecting with people to see if that's something you really enjoy. And I love it, Sherry. I say, look at the clues from your childhood. What did you do for what gave you joy? Those are clues, everyone. So ask your family and friends, what did they notice about you? Get some input from other people. But I love that story that you actually visited the elderly. I had a friend who just got her master's in social work, and she loved old people too. And she would go visit them and just love on them. And I used to tell her, I see this in you, like clue phone, like don't make this harder than it has to be. You're right. A social worker. So she just got her master's as well.
Nice.
So we have about one more question. So I guess I'd like to ask you, would you do anything different now that you're kind of 30 years in and you've had this beautiful variety of opportunities? Is there anything that you maybe done along the way differently?
That's an interesting question I haven't thought about before, but I really don't think so. I think that the only thing I maybe would have done had I been more insightful, maybe, was to develop my skills in different languages. So I ended up having a private practice that was geared towards individuals that were hearing, but also people that were deaf and hard of hearing. So I was able to continue those skills and learn that. My husband's Puerto Rican, and with his family, we speak Spanish. And had I known that, I would have paid better attention in my Spanish classes in college. And so I can get along with Spanish, but not in a way that I would be able to sit and do therapy with somebody. And when we talk, I may have to clarify, and that just kind of breaks up the flow of treatment. So I guess that I would probably try and specialize a little bit more, or just develop my skills in learning different languages. I think that would be one area that I probably would work on looking back. But
I think that's a great inside scoop for these young people as they're still in high school to really hear that and consider, when they're taking their language classes in high school, or we have kids who may be bilingual on this call, that's an asset, and to really consider it that way, right?
Absolutely, because I could have all these skills and credentials after my name, but if there's somebody else who maybe has less experience and less education, but they can speak another language, oftentimes they're going to get the job before I would, because they're able to serve more individuals. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Well, you're gonna have one just final word of wisdom. I'm gonna share a couple quick resources with them, Sherry, and then you could just finish off with a final encouragement or word of wisdom that you'd like these young people to know as they explore. Students, if you are interested about social work, please go to onetonline.org. It's a fantastic career site where you can get some of the ins and outs and nuts and bolts of some of these careers, you know, how much money they make, if it's a growing job, what typical tasks are like. So this is a great resource. This is just an example of the screenshot, of the healthcare social workers is how ONET categorizes it. But as you see here, let me see if I can annotate for a second. These are some other job names. So she was referring to being a medical social worker, right? But healthcare social workers is how it's categorized. And as I pointed out in some past career chats, I love this site because it talks about what typical work activities are like, what the education is needed, what kind of credentials might you be able to get, what are some related careers. It helps you explore. This is what the next step is for some of you that are like, man, I'm starting to narrow it down. Get in here, dig in. And then also there is a website, the National Association of Social Workers. Again, get on there, just investigate, find out what they have to say. You're going to glean a lot of good information, just like we got from Sherry today. So Sherry, your last word of wisdom, I'm going to, oh, I didn't get your permission, so I'm going to skip past that. If
No,
you
it's
want,
fine.
is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
I meant to ask you before.
No, I actually was going to mention that if people do have questions or just want some follow-up, they're welcome to reach out to me. I've been able to mentor or even just speak into a lot of people's you know, discernment of the process. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I guess in terms of just final thoughts is just be open. You know, a lot of times people think of social worker and it's, you know, they have a real clear perception of what that person is and what that person does. And I dare bet you'll be surprised at the breadth of what you can do. You know, I have 2 boys who are very different, and it's been interesting. They've looked into a lot of different careers, and they're both actually going into social work, which if you knew them, that would blow your mind. So it's not just for girls. It's not just for somebody that wants to work with, you know, children. I mean, there's so much that you can do. And if you have a heart for people and helping people change and walking alongside them, I would just really challenge you to look into this and just kind of follow that and see, you know, think about what, like Krista said, like what is it that kind of ignites your passion, and explore that. So.
Sure, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your career path with young people. I know that they gleaned some good stuff. I know I did. So thank you for making time today.
It's been my pleasure, truly. Thanks. All right, have a